Hello, hello. Happy Juneteenth. Are we here? Can you hear me? Can I be heard? I hope so. You know, these live things are still such new technology for some of us, but we're getting our stuff together, y'all. We are. Um, I wanted to just say hello to all of our sister disruptors, all of our friends hanging out with us live today. It's Juneteenth, y'all, and it's a day that commemorates the liberation struggle of Black people in the United States, with deep roots in the 2.5 year discrepancy or differential between the Emancipation Proclamation issued January 1st, 1863, and the eventual acknowledgement of abolition in Texas on the 19th day of June, 1865. And though it's a day of celebration, we all know that it's a day also of remembrance, of family, of Black community expressions, of culture and resilience. And so we'll get into that a little bit more later with our special guest. We have a few notes, though, before we speak with our special guest, Chef Halili Davis, who is waiting patiently behind the scenes to appear at the right moment. But we have a few things we want to talk to you all about today. So we've been asked by some of our friends and colleagues what they can do to support our work. For us, it's not a one-time event, a special holiday, or a memorial. We have come up with a couple of ways that you can show solidarity and support during Juneteenth and every day. First of all, we'd love for you to buy from Black women-owned businesses. We're all about making sure that that happens, that we fund Black women-led organizations, and we continue to invest in our communities. So buy from Black women-owned businesses, y'all, fund Black women-led organizations, and invest in our communities. Then you can also join us for our Black Women Disrupt Summer Live series, Resistance, Resilience, and Innovation. Follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram. On Twitter, we're Black W Disrupt. And you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're there, and you can watch the replay of all of these great conversations we're having with Black women from around the world. Last but not least, give a shout out, post a picture, show a product, send some love to a sister disruptor that you admire and respect. Don't forget to tag Black Women Disrupt, hashtag Black Women Disrupt, so we can send her some love too. We really just want to see more of us thriving in the environment that we currently live in. So at Black Women Disrupt, we're using our voices in a new way in 2020. We're committed to inspire, challenge, co-create, and transform our societies by working with businesses and social enterprises led by Black women in the Americas and around the world. However, we'll be curating more intimate conversations like the one today, and we'll be bringing the voices of sister disruptors to you over the next couple of weeks. We really want to explore life after a pivot, the brilliance and lessons from sisters doing this work, living this moment just like us, women around the world who can help us reconnect to our purpose, reconnect to ourselves and our missions, and women who will remind us that we still have a unique purpose in life, right? That the struggle is not over and that we can build, grow, and build again. So even though we're in the midst of some of the most challenging times right now, there's so much more we will do and can do to support our families and communities and transform the societies in which we live. No more said. I'm ready to introduce our special guest. We have with us, I'm just going to bring her in real quick, Chef Halili Davis.
Hello,
joining
everyone.
us. Joining us from California in the United States. She can let you know what city that might be, but in California. As a child, Halili spent many hours in her mother's kitchen preparing meals for family and friends. During these hours, she learned how to prepare food and plan entire menus. Halili is a natural ability when it comes to food preparation and floral design. She started her culinary journey at 10 years old when she created her first party. At 17, she studied floral design and opened a flower shop a few years later. Still catering small events, she attended Le Cordon Bleu. She graduated with honors and went on to be a celebrity personal chef. Halili started Palettes and Petals, and her business highlights her two passions, food and flowers. Her formal French training and vegetarian upbringing are combined to create the perfect balance guaranteed to satisfy the most discriminating palates. Well, I'll be the judge of that. I'll be the judge of that.
Come on.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
We are so excited to have you today. When we talk about you being a child and learning these things, can I say these things? Can I just say?
Yeah.
I know that this is true because Halili actually grew up with me during a certain part of our childhood, and she was always in the kitchen. I'm just so excited to see just all that she's been able to accomplish and do with her passion. And so I could not help but make sure that we brought her here with us today. I just have so many questions because we grew up together at a very young age, and then you moved to Southern California and I lived in the Bay Area. So all of these questions, the sandwich in between then and now,
right.
I need to know.
I don't know if we're going to be able to cover that in an hour, but I will try.
Give it the good bits. So
I first want to say thanks for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here to share my story.
Of course.
And you were talking. I cut you off, but I'm so grateful to be here.
No, we love it. I think it's one thing that is so important about these conversations that we're having with Sister Disruptors, and I'm calling you a Sister Disruptor, is that we are learning that they are just like us. Often when we talk about entrepreneurship, when we talk about business women, they seem unapproachable. They're not close enough for us to touch. And their lives seem sometimes just so far from our reality, right? It's on a yacht, it's, living the fabulous life, or, constantly grinding, but we don't get to talk about what built us, what makes us, and what keeps us strong, and being more vulnerable in our journey, and sharing that vulnerability with other people. So I couldn't think of a better person to help talk about some of this. I wanted to ask you, I see you went dark. I hope you're okay. Yes?
Oh, sorry. There we are.
So we have a couple of questions for you. What led you to choose your current career? And the second part of that is, when did you know you were an entrepreneur?
So the first part of the question is, I've always loved food. I grew up in a house with 3 brothers, and I remember being teased as a little kid about either becoming a professional food taster or a chef. And I knew very early on that I loved food. It was one of those things. I like to bring up the fact that my mom worked, and there were periods of time where we were latchkey kids. We were at home alone, and the rule was you didn't cook anything. And that was the one thing that was the one rule I could not follow. And I got so creative with ways to disrupt the rules in my own home, to the point where, we would come home from school. My mom would do her regular call. I'd take the call and I'd go right into snack making. And it always included fire, because at a very young age, my mom would say, here's a knife, you can make the salad. And that anyone can make a salad. You don't need any fire. The knife was usually a butter knife. It was like the most boring part of cooking. And so I learned that if I put all the ice from the freezer onto a sheet tray and put it on the top of the stove, by the time she got home, it was cool. She would never know that it had been turned on. Meanwhile, we had eaten very extravagant snacks that included lots of fire.
Lots of fire. And I recall you actually making up a lot of stuff, like no recipe, having like an incredible sense of like this would taste good. I think we tried to make some hot chocolate with no chocolate once. I believe it was brown sugar centered flavors.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was really crazy, but
I'll have to revisit that.
Yeah.
And make it better.
Make it better. It was carob. That's what it was. It was carob and brown sugar.
So I had a chocolate allergy for years.
Wow.
And I worked through it. I continued to eat the chocolate until my body stopped fighting it. And here we are today, a true chocoholic.
That's crazy. That is crazy.
I know.
So,
yeah.
So the second part of the question is, when did you know you were going to be an entrepreneur? Because it's one thing to love food.
So
and
my very first business, I have a cousin that lives here in Southern California. Her name is Havona, and she's an entrepreneur to this day also. Okay. And our very first business was H&H Incorporated. And we used to make, this is probably 1984. We used to make tie-dyed socks, t-shirts, and sweatshirts. Her mom is an artist and used to teach us how to like batik and tie-dye. So we would tie-dye all these socks and t-shirts and sweatshirts, and then we would decorate them with puffy paint, because back then that was like this huge trend, right? Yeah. And we would take them to the very first place that we had a booth at the Kwanzaa festival in Leimert Park. And that was our very first, and we sold a lot of t-shirts and a lot of socks and stuff. And, you know, ever since then, it's been like, you know, I have worked for people, but I think that my place is working for me. I do a lot better working for myself.
That's really interesting. So you learned at an early age. And so that means that you've been on this journey for for a few years now. What's been your proudest?
An extremely long time.
I just didn't want to, what's been your proudest achievement?
Girl. So I have quite a few actually. And when I got this question, it, being the Virgo that I am, it took me quite some time to kind of try to narrow it down. And I realized that there isn't one particular moment, there's several moments. And I think that's kind of what growing and evolving as a woman and a mom and an entrepreneur. And so the ability, so my reputation, I have this really good reputation for being on time. And for me and for us, that's huge. And so to be able to, people don't ever question, like I'm usually 15 to 20 minutes ahead of time. I usually beat the client there and they're like, wait, but the delivery, well, I'm waiting for you. So when you get here, I'll be ready. Because in my head, if I'm supposed to be there at 4:30, I should be set up and leaving at 4:30 because the delivery is actually done at the time versus me getting there and trying to set it up.
Got it.
So my reputation for being on time, I think that I started my business in a very, this particular business in a very, I think that I would say challenging time in my life. I was going through a divorce. I had young children. I, turned into a single mom kind of like overnight. And the ability to show my children what it is to love something and work hard for it and continue to, I guess, have the show go on regardless of what else happens is another really proud moment. Wow. There was a time where I had to work 28 days straight and they were like 14, 16-hour days because my sous chef got hurt on another job and the show had to go on. So I had to keep going. And then another thing that I'm extremely proud of and really passionate about, everybody who knows me knows that I really love to empower people and expose people to new foods and things that maybe they have tasted as a child but haven't revisited in 20 years. That to get someone to try something again and fall in love with it all over again is like, it melts my heart. Like I will stand there and say, so you're not going to eat that? And they'll say, oh no, I don't eat that. And I'm like, well, when's the last time you had that? Well, I didn't eat that because and I'll tell them, I'm sorry, but I'm pretty sure your mom just did not make it right. Try this. Because we come from generations of people boiling and overcooking vegetables until they become baby food. Yeah, and sometimes it only takes 10 minutes. And if you revisit it, and you know, even for myself, there are things that I don't enjoy and I revisit on a regular basis because all of a sudden I'm in love with it. Like your palate changes on a regular basis. So I'm really proud of those moments.
Taking notes because I'm a food lover as well.
I lost you. I can't hear you. Let me see.
Oh my! I said
Oh nope.
Can you hear me?
Mm-mm.
No audio. Okay. Can you hear us now?
No. Hold on. Let me try to. Can you?
I can hear you. So we'll do the following. We're gonna put the.
I can't hear you. I lost.
I'm gonna chat to you. We'll put the questions up for you. And I'm going to keep talking through this, my friends out there. Let's see if she can follow us until the sound comes back in. So why is it important to organize with women in mind? What do you think are the challenges that sister disruptors in the U.S. are facing right now? Okay.
I see the question on the screen. I can't hear you, but I'm just going to answer it.
Yes.
And so I'm going to look a little closer.
Okay.
So for me, this is something that I think has been important for us as a whole for a very long time. These are conversations that I remember my mom and her friends having conversations about, you know, how important it is for us to organize with women in mind. And the reality is that we really are responsible for the world. We raise the children and sometimes the husbands. we raise, you know, we're aunts and mothers and sisters and cousins. Yeah. And it's important for us to really work together and put aside a lot of the differences that we have. I know that my upbringing, you know, our upbringing, I grew up and my first experience with school was in a shule. Yeah. And so
should we tell them what a shule is?
I was kind of taught early on to have this broad idea of Black women and my sense of Blackness and women all over the world. And you fell in love with them, even though you didn't meet them and you didn't know them, but you knew that there were others out there just like you that had the same struggles. And in some ways we had it a little bit easier. And so for us, you know, to organize with women in mind, I think it's important because at the root of all of it, you know, a Black woman is going to raise the next important Black man or Black woman. And this takes me back to a place where I think it's really important for us to unpack the bags. And when I say unpack the bags, I mean the generational trauma. It's weird because I feel like I'm talking to myself because I can't hear you, but I think it's important for us to really, especially right now, work on ourselves from a mental health and wellness point of view, because without really working on that stuff that's here, you can't really open your eyes and be available to see everything else out there. And sometimes things happen and they're not necessarily as about you as you think they are. And so when you start to unpack those personal things, or I like to say bags, that baggage, once you start to get rid of that baggage, it puts you in a place to be open and receive, whether it is honest feedback from a colleague or another entrepreneur or even a customer, and not make it about, oh, well, they're just whatever. Like feedback to me is it's a gift. Whether it's negative or positive, it's a gift. You take that information and you find ways to grow. It's literally drops of seeds that have been planted in your soil for you to water and nurture and grow, and you turn them into something positive. So I don't know if I really answered that question.
You did. We are dealing with some difficulties with.
I'm wondering if maybe you take your earphones off. Will that make it better? No?
We're having a few technical difficulties. Can you hear me now? Halili, can you hear us? No?
Let me see.
We're going to try something. We're going to move her out and back into the studio, and let's see if we can get it to work. Let's see. So while we're waiting for her to come back in, I think it's really interesting. She gave some different perspective on how to take a negative and turn it into a positive. And that's definitely something, I mean, when it comes to being an entrepreneur, learning how to pivot in difficult times is real. So let me see if we can get her back into the stream.
There you are.
You can hear me?
I can hear you too. Yay!
Wow.
Sorry about that.
No problem. I mean, stuff happens, and we're all now, like, talking about a pivot, we are all now facing and having to deal with the fact that we might not all be used to technology in the way that we work. I've had to learn a whole lot. I'm giving thanks to all kinds of people who behind the scenes make magic happen because it's a learning curve. For me, that's been a major thing. It's like now everything is virtual, and I love people. I love being in rooms with people, exchanging with people, talking with people, looking people in their real eyes and not looking at a camera. So I'm hoping that we can continue to do this type of thing, even though technology sometimes can be a little bit of a challenge. So we're going to move on to the next question. And actually, it's right on time because it's a question about innovation and how innovation plays a role in your work, or does it? And the second question isn't related to that, but it is kind of. So I'll leave it for after you answer the question about innovation.
So when I thought about this, I thought about being creative, because for me, innovation and creativity go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And taking a basic ingredient and giving it a whole new role is the way that it's kind of affected me in my line of work. And with a surge of new people that are now vegan and vegetarian, and it's opened up a lot of doors. So that's how innovation kind of plays in my world. It's about creativity. I literally will wake up sometimes, in the morning, and the first thing I can think of is, what can I do in the kitchen?
That's fantastic.
I'm extremely blessed and grateful for knowing that I'm in the field that I really love being in, because there's a lot of people that still haven't figured that out. And I figured it out very early on. So,
and it's interesting that you talked about that as technology, because this is something that that's been kind of a recurring theme in our discussions this month with different sister disruptors from South Africa, from Colombia. And we've been talking about how technology is often seen through the lens of what is digital, or what is kind of, this modern, whatever this idea of what modern technology is, using the internet, whatever. But that our communities have always had and utilized creativity and innovation and to make things and to survive. And a lot of that plays out in the way that we eat. We talked about the boiled vegetables. Yes.
On our creativity and our innovation. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that segues into the next question, which is, why do you think it might be important to have the community in mind when you build and grow your business?
Okay. So for me, I am a direct what is the word that I'm looking for? I'm gonna go to my notes because I wrote a whole
I bet you the word is
thesis.
product.
Yes, I am a product of my community,
Yeah.
and if I move on and forget about them, what does that say? And I grew up with a very strong sense of community. I mean, like, you were there. But
Yes.
so it's like it's all about the tribe, and it's all
Yeah.
about looking out for one another. And I when I answered this question and thought about this question, it took me back to saying, wow, you're really your mother's child. Like,
Right?
you're really your mother's child. And my mom was that mom that would see two kids acting up outside and would totally pull them both aside and give them a lecture of a lifetime. They would leave with
Absolutely.
notes, a book, and her
Yes.
phone
And
number.
a phone number.
And yeah. And so for me, like, I think it's very important to make sure
Yeah.
that we grow the community. I mean, because it goes beyond that. And like, right now we're dealing with this pandemic, but we also have this other issue in our community, which is called diabetes. And
Right.
no one's saying anything about it. Like, people as young as 25 are diagnosed with type 2, and it's the food.
Yeah, man.
And so, like, that's my next project, is really making sure that I share that. I'm about to out myself. I am actually a diabetic. And there
Wow.
was no way it was family history. I mean, there was no way to avoid it. I had it when I was pregnant with both of my children, and they said the chances of it coming back are very high. And I hit
Wow.
40, and I got glasses
Wow.
and diabetes.
No,
That was my
no,
present.
no. Surprise. Just for
But the
you.
beauty of that was that with my upbringing and the way that I feed myself, I'm not on any medication. My A1C
Amazing.
is below what it would be considered to actually be diabetic. And I still drink alcohol from time to time. I'm a sugar addict. I love sweets.
Mm-hmm.
So I've learned to balance it with the right foods and the right
Yeah.
herbs. And, I'm living my life, and I'm not, worried about having to go on some pharmaceutical that's
Medication.
going to, put me into kidney failure,
Mm.
because I've worked on trying to do it naturally. And so that's, for me, community, that's my next thing, is like, we've got to do better, because the
Mm.
medicine is just going to make us sicker. And then that's why there are dialysis places popping up all over town.
They're like corner stores, right? It's like I see a corner
Yeah.
store, I see a
And see a
dialysis
dialysis.
center. And
Yeah.
it's so
And
interesting.
And
Hmm.
25 years ago, when my mother-in-law was on dialysis, we would have to, if she came to visit, we would have to drive her, an hour
Mm.
away to get her. And then it became like, oh, it's down the street. And it's
Mm.
like,
Mm.
so
Right. Something has
for
changed.
me,
Yeah.
community, I'm here to expose, empower, and heal my community. That's what I feel like my job, my role is here. I might not be able to reach everybody, but
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna do my best to try to reach as many people as I can, and help with that.
I appreciate that. And thank you for bringing the health component, because of course, how can we talk about food without talking about health in any way, shape, or
Yeah.
form? It's linked. Um, and so thinking about when you started out and when you first got your first business and your fingers were itching and it was time to, get started, get rolling. What advice would you give to Sister Disruptor just starting out in her business? What are some tips that you can give our sisters listening today?
So, I say this kind of often, and there's this talk about getting the bag. I don't know,
Yes.
what age limit we're dealing with here, but
Right.
everybody's talking about chasing this bag. And my thing is, if the bag is filled with issues and trauma, where does the money
Mm-hmm.
go?
Right.
Unpack the bag so that you can put the money inside the bag. Unpack the bag so that you can be fearless and strong and open and ready for it. And also
Mm.
find joy, because to me, my business is like, in some ways, a relationship. I put love and joy into it in hopes that I get love and joy back from it.
Fantastic.
And I'm kind to myself when it doesn't work out the way that I think it's going to act because it's a business and it's a relationship and it's here to grow and it's here to teach me and I'm here to learn from it. So I would say be open to wherever this business that you choose to go into takes you. Make sure that it's something that you love and that even if you don't make tons and tons of money, it's something that's feeding your soul. It's something that you're okay with, being able to share and work and share your I guess your gifts. And it might not always be about the money. I mean, we all want to make money and I've been blessed to make some money, but there are moments where I do things for free just because I like the spirit of the client. I like, where that person is going and there's a genuine concern for how I want, there's this whole vision. And if their vision matches my vision, then I find myself giving so much of it because I want it to work,
I feel you on that one.
The other thing is charge what you charge and be okay with saying, I'm sorry, this just isn't for you. If they don't want to pay, they can go away.
I think we're going to have to quote that.
Yes, if they don't want to pay, they can go away. And it's, it took me years to get to that point because, people would say, oh, that's expensive. And then I would try to, I would end up not only not making money, but giving money to make it work so that it fit my brand and it fit my vision because, creativity is creativity, but you have to have money to buy goods to create.
Tell me about it.
If it costs $5,000 and they're saying, oh, well, so-and-so can do it for $1,500. You know what? I understand what your budget is. I respect that. I think $1,500, that's where you should go. And be okay with letting them walk away because in the end, you'll start to build a brand where people will know your work and know your worth and they will pay for it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. That was a lot of gems. You gave a bunch of stuff away for free. How do you balance, we're talking about who we are and we're more than just our entrepreneurial selves. We are multifaceted as women. We have families, whether those are our parents or our parents and our children, parents, children, husbands, wives, etc. How do we balance all the needs, or how do you balance the needs you may face as a parent, an entrepreneur? And then if you could let us know kind of like, what's your way of centering yourself as you move through all of that?
I would say my family, biological and extended, my tribe, my group of friends. I've got a wonderful group of girlfriends that I've had for 30 plus years. And, we keep each other in line. If someone wants to be petty, we call the group and it's like, no, that ain't right. Don't do that.
Group intervention.
It's like, no. Don't say that. Don't do that.
So they keep you grounded.
Now. But we keep each other grounded. But my main thing is like, I do this gratitude meditation every morning. I don't necessarily sit and do it. I'm in the kitchen or walking around or giving out orders but I have it in my ear. And so it's a constant thing to remind me of all the things, the small things like my plants, the ability to turn this door and walk outside and go get mail. There's people that can't do that. So I try to remain grateful, but balancing my children and just everyday life, it's tough. It can be very tough.
You saw one just walk through here. I don't know what he thought he was doing, but I'm like,
he just wanted to make sure you were right. Well, they pick locks.
Yes, exactly.
They do.
He's like, that's not gonna stop me.
No, he's like, I'm coming in. So with I said it earlier, it's being kind to yourself. So I make a list. I'm a list maker. A lot of people are, but I am a list maker. Like, you know, it makes me feel like I've accomplished things when I check the list off.
Yeah.
It's something that we were taught in culinary school to make production lists, so that way
Mm-hmm.
you don't miss things, you know. It helps
Yeah.
you really manage time. And so I'm a list maker. And so there are moments where the list is super long because I've itemized it like
Right.
so meticulously. And I don't get through the list. And I have to remind myself that, okay, you didn't get through the list. But that just means that tomorrow morning you got another list of stuff to work on, and it's another moment to be great. So don't be mad.
Yes.
Just keep going.
Yeah.
And in that, constantly reminding myself to be kind to myself, because it's, you know, I'm always trying to find the bright side and be positive about it. Because if you don't, then you just kind of get trapped in this negative loop, and it's impossible to get out of.
You're speaking
So,
my language. I'm feeling it. I'm sure everyone out there is feeling that too.
It really goes back to,
Yeah.
you know, mental. I mean, it's huge right now. Everybody is talking about mental health. And I think for us, you know, it's really important that we really take the time to look at that. I know that it can be expensive. I know that it might not be accessible. I know that right now there are some programs where people are donating sessions.
Yeah.
But for me, it is extremely important that we take the time to kind of unpack the bags. And like I said, it just came up earlier today. I was like, how can you put money in a bag if you got it filled with issues? You can't.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You can't even recognize when it's coming because you're taking everything so personal. It just feels, you got to get ready. And the only way to get ready is
to get rid of some of the weight. Get it off. Yeah, it's true. So speaking of that, and this kind of segues into my next question. You did good homework. Oh, look at you. You're in my head. The next question is really about how do we pivot in these difficult times. So we've got women who, you know, all around the world who've had their businesses or starting their businesses, are experienced business women. And then this COVID pandemic comes, and it's like something we've never seen before. Pile on top of that, all of these other pressures, and in the US, we're having issues in Brazil, all around. How have you pivoted or adapted during this pandemic? What are you doing differently now that, well, we know probably you're not catering major events, but how have you been able to pivot? And what advice would you give to sister disruptors who are facing this type of major transition?
So I have to be honest, the first month was tragic.
Yeah.
Like it was like the most, it felt like, you know, bricks just fell on top of me. I was like, what?
Yeah.
My whole business is built on gathering, and now you're saying we can't gather?
Right.
And then even if you run across those people that were still like, oh, it's not real, I'm going to gather anyway. I didn't want to go where they were because I was like, no, it's real. I'm not going there. There's not enough money in the world that you could convince me to put my life at risk to give you a couple casseroles. I don't know. But
yeah.
So, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and so what happened then? Like after you were hit by a ton of bricks, then what? How did you deal?
What I said was, okay, so we've got to make changes. And I started to notice that a lot of things were online. And so I held a couple of, you know, cooking classes. I've decided to be way more active on social media. And you know, everybody's talking about 2020 is canceled. And for me, I just feel like 2020 is literally an eye opener. If you do not open your eyes and take a look at what's going on and lean into the transition, you're going to get left behind. It's going to be very painful. And so I was lucky enough to be able to financially be able to just kind of make things, you know, still flow. And so when I took that pressure off of myself, I decided that I was actually going to use this time to work on projects that I never really made time for because there was never enough time. I was always running and always cooking and always working on something for someone else. So I used this time to work on me. And I'm like, you know what? This is actually a vacation. The bills are going to get paid.
I'm on the vacation.
No, for me, it was. It was a
Got
mental
it.
break. It was a mental
Oh,
break. It allowed me the
wow.
space to become more creative. It allowed me the
Totally.
space to be grateful for the time to actually look inward. And so,
Very
for
true.
anybody else, like, if you can take care of the financial stress and that
Mhm.
piece, then use this time to look inward. It's
Absolutely.
look inward. And so it's also forced me out of my comfort zone. I'm literally right here talking on
You
this
are
camera,
alive.
and
You
I
are
am
alive.
I made it. I thought that I'm like,
Look,
I would
we've had
never go live.
people. No, in April, that was me. I was like, I will never go live. And then a friend of mine who's a journalist was like, I want to interview you. And I was like, yep, nope, not gonna happen. But look at me. We're,
Yeah.
creating these spaces. And I think I just wanted to let you know a few shout outs came through. Sharifa Ned said, hey there. And
Hey.
Patrice Marshall said, expose, empower, and heal. Yes.
That's right.
And then make your money, sis. Your time and expertise has value. Absolutely.
Yes. Yes.
So we haven't gotten any questions yet, but we still have questions for you. So I just love how this is flowing. Before we get
Great
to
energy.
yes, of course. Before we get to that, some of the last questions, I wanted to ask you about, you talked about segueing into this space that's virtual and providing classes online and things like that. I recall, about 2 years ago, a year ago,
Mm-hmm. We
you
did this.
did a session for my children and nieces and nephews making cookies, and they haven't forgotten it yet. Like
We have
my
to do it again.
6-year-old, we will. It's on my list. But my 6-year-old loves cardamom because of you.
I love that. I love that. You said
Like
he loves it in his oatmeal.
he's
Like,
like the
it's not
oatmeal
oatmeal
has to
without it.
have no. He's like the oatmeal has to have
I
cardamom.
love that.
And he's serious about, I would have never thought to put cardamom. Yeah, those are those are they. Delicious. And we had so many cookies after that, and they were just, it was so interactive. So it's amazing to see how something like that could turn into a different way of doing business. I would definitely pay for a chef to work with me and my family to build recipes and to do some things that maybe we didn't have time to do before either. So it's really it can be an opportunity. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And I'm becoming more comfortable with doing it. And so, like, you're always a little nervous when you first start, and then you get on there and it's becoming like a regular thing. Like,
It is. It
I've been
is.
FaceTiming and WhatsApping, video chatting, and so much now. It's
Zooming.
like, Zooming. Like, it's just a regular thing now.
So I wanted to ask you, I think I heard that you have something to show us, and I just wanted
I
to know if we could
did.
sneak a peek.
Okay.
I'm going to put
So
you
this
on
was
blast, but
That's fine. So, and
I'm
I'm
going to
like,
see
dang, my
it.
mouth is dry. So I'm totally ready for this thing that I was supposed to do
Okay.
earlier.
Okay.
But we spoke yesterday and we were just talking about like the week and all kinds of things. And so we're actually going to put together a drink. I have some infused bourbon right here that's got some peaches in it.
Ooh.
Um, and so in the conversation, we were talking about maybe some kind of liberation libation. And that is literally what the name of the drink is.
I love it.
Once you said that, it took me like it took over my whole day. I was like, oh, how can I do it? What can it be? And so when I started to think of it, I thought what I could do is I could pull things from my own personal background. And so like my mom's family is from Louisiana, and so the sweet element is going to be the sugar cane.
Oh, nice.
My grandma on my dad's side is from like Stroud, Oklahoma. Teeny tiny little town there. But
Yeah.
one of their crops, because I had to Google all this, one of the crops is cucumbers. So we're gonna do cucumbers to balance.
Okay.
Um, there's a whole bunch of things, but like there's Mississippi, and then there's bourbon, and then you can't have a celebration without champagne because
Oh,
that's what
wait, there's champagne in it
celebrations.
too?
Oh well,
That's
that's
why
just
it's called Palettes and Petals. Lord have
yeah.
mercy. Okay.
So I'm going to put it together. So we are going to, you have to bear
Awesome.
with me because it's not really like
We know you
kitchen
weren't going to
set
really
up,
do, yes.
but
But you're going to show
so
us
we're
what
going
you
to,
have.
so we're
Mm-hmm.
going to put a couple of, I've got some sugar cane. I cut it into a couple chunks. I don't know if you can see it there. We're going to put a couple
Yeah.
chunks in this mason jar. I actually don't have a shaker. I make all my drinks in mason jars, which I think everybody should have a mason jar. So you
I
are
need
now
a
a
mason
bartender.
jar. Yeah.
We're going to do 3 chunks of cucumber.
Mm-hmm.
So the interesting story about this mint, I know earlier I went outside and cut it.
Is that what
This
you were
mint,
showing us when you were giving
yeah,
us?
no, that was parsley. And the funny
Okay.
thing about that video is that I cut so much parsley. And you know how in videos they say, no whatever was harmed during making this video. And I had like this handful of parsley. And I was like, 20 to 30 leaves of parsley were harmed making this video. But that's okay. I can use it for some chimichurri or something.
Yes. Put it in food.
So this mint, I'm going to throw 4 leaves, tiny little leaves in there.
Okay.
And this mint, actually, I've been calling it heirloom mint. And the reason why is because this mint was grown. My great-grandmother used to grow mint in her yard.
Okay.
My grandmother would go to Fresno and always bring back mint. Mint grows like weeds.
Wow.
So she would take the mint, wrap it in a paper towel, and either put it in a glass and propagate it and root it, or bring roots, wrap them in wet newspaper, and then plant them in the ground.
Okay.
So I got mint from my grandmother's house.
That's so
and
special.
I've been growing it, so I had to include mint in the drink. So now I'm going to use this tiny little spoon and basically muddle it in there. Okay, let me sorry, I forgot to put the alcohol. This is the bourbon. So I'm going to pour, I'm a heavy pourer.
Okay.
You can usually do about 1 ounce to 1.5 ounces, which is like a shot to a shot and a half. I'm probably going to do 2 to 3 shots.
Okay.
You said, okay.
I want to make
only
sure.
Because the mason jar is so big. So
Okay.
we're doing a little bit of a drip. There we go. All right. So now we're going to use that, and that liquid, and we're going to basically muddle.
Cool.
Extract all the flavors from our mint and our cucumber and our sugar cane. Okay. And I'll actually post an exact recipe for the
tell them where they can
liberation libation.
Yes. So, we're gonna put your handle up here. So
I'm
Instagram
at
handle.
Palettes and Petals on Instagram and Facebook. I will apologize in advance because I spend a lot of time on Instagram and just kind of sharing my posts to my Facebook page. I realize that sometimes I go on there and I'm like, oh, I never responded to that person's comment. So please don't take it personal. I really do love you. It's hard. It's hard.
So we got some comments while you're muddling there.
Yeah.
A few people said that they love using mint for flowers, but they need to get some for cocktails. Yes. Another person asked, hey, chef, and this person that was Patrice that asked about flowers. Ty Davis wants to know, chef, balancing beautiful flower arrangements and top quality food seems really time consuming. How do you balance it? I think you kind of
extremely time consuming. But I balance it with production lists. And I've learned this over the years. There was a time where I would shop and then try to cater and do it all in one day. And now it's down to a science. I will shop days in advance and start preparing the things that are going to take the longest, and then it just kind of flows. And if there's flowers involved, then there's a day before I go to the flower mart, I start soaking oases and preparing vases and things. So there's a timeline. It's a lot of 8 to 10 hour shifts so that everything runs seamlessly and smoothly.
See, people they just see the beautiful swan floating in the water. They don't see the legs paddling.
And I've had clients, get annoyed with the fact that I don't let them cancel last minute. And they're like, but you
Yeah.
haven't even made food. But I have planned out everything and I've given you a lot of time. So
Right.
while there's no food, there's still been a lot of hours put into planning. There's been, things have started to roast in order to make sauces, in 2 days. Like
Yeah.
things have been marinated or fabricated in terms of meats. Like things are happening. I've talked to
Absolutely.
vendors and farmers and whoever else I've needed to talk to in order to get it going. So just because the food isn't made doesn't mean the work is not being done. Do
That's
not
right.
do not play
Yeah.
games.
Someone made a comment that you pay for the time too, and that's absolutely
Exactly.
true. I think a lot of us, when we're thinking about pricing, we say, "Oh, it'd be so bad to, pay for this particular service or product, and that's such an expensive cost." But when you think of the hours of time that you're spending, it can be,
It adds up.
yeah, absolutely,
It
and the
definitely
material,
adds up.
totally.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so now that we've got that nice and muddled up,
Hmm.
what I'm going to do, I've got a cup of ice. I
Yeah,
am going to take one of these beautifully drunken peaches now
I just
and
need to
put
be
that as a
there.
garnish.
Oh my gosh, I'm so thirsty.
I'm- That's
So
the best. I
thirsty.
said I'm so thirsty. And so we're going to use the top of this mason jar to create a little barrier so
Yeah.
that we can not get all of our muddled things inside.
Yes.
So there's that. So now we have
Oh,
this.
people giving you
And
so much
now,
love. Let me see. Oh,
so now we're going to top with champagne
oh, this is
because it is a
fancy.
celebration. It's always fancy.
Ooh, look, my mouth is just, I'm like watching you pour it.
So the
I
bubbles.
could watch this all day.
And I've been creating lots of infused bourbons and vodkas. I have another one that I am working on, kind of editing the video, but my latest obsession has been dragon fruit. I'm growing it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
eating it constantly, and I found dried dragon fruit at Trader Joe's. The Trader Joe's near me ran out, and it broke my heart, so I traveled far to hoard from another store. So if
Okay.
you are in Pasadena, California, and you cannot find dragon fruit, I'm sorry.
It's
I
you.
bought it.
Yeah.
I did it. It was
I
me.
always felt
So
like
we're gonna
dragon fruit
garnish.
didn't have, oh, look.
Oh, so there it
Wait,
is.
let me see. That's the final product.
This is the final
Delicious.
product.
I see Shamari Davis logged in on here. And
Hey,
Shamari
Blake.
Davis, well, he wants to know, after you've catered a few times for clients, what are the most requested dishes to repeat?
Braised short ribs.
Ooh, recipe. Mm.
Braised short ribs is my number one seller. I mean,
Nice.
it is. I have a client that loves it. They love it with mashed potatoes. I do a smashed Yukon Gold. And so
Mm.
the braised short rib, it's really an Italian, a French style braised short rib. And so it's braised in a lot of red wine and thyme, and it's slow cooked for probably about 5.5 hours. And it's wonderful over polenta too, which
I
I
mean, it
absolutely
sounds
love.
like you got it all together over there in terms of that. I want to see this drink one last time. I know we have a couple of other people who had questions.
Can you see it?
That looks dreamy. I can see
It's
all the
really
bits,
good.
all the pieces. And what I love most about what you talked about while you were making that libation is that there's so much history behind it, that it's related and rooted in who you are. And I think we often we lose sight of the importance of that part of our history, the things that our grandparents and great grandparents teach us, the legacy that gets passed on. These are the actual tangible things that sometimes, because we didn't have access to all of the schools and all of the writing and all of the things that share stories, are kind of our culinary history, as well as our storytelling, is really what has kept a lot of our culture alive. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
And the culinary history is something that's so dear to me, and I can't wait to get back on a plane and go somewhere. That is like my thing. Is I feel like a lot of problems and conversations take place over food, and they're most successful over food. And so I've talked about trying to, I mean, there was a time where I was doing work for a nonprofit, and I was dealing with a lot of the youth, and it was the best thing to have two kids from totally different backgrounds who normally wouldn't even deal with each other come together and work in a group to make something, and just basically fall in love with each other, because they were the same on so many levels, but had been taught that they were different.
Right.
And so, like, as soon as I can get back on the plane, like my goal is to go and spend time, not in a restaurant somewhere, but literally in someone's home, you know, learning their traditional foods and learning stories behind why they serve this and where it came from. And then to take it to the next part, where these people aren't very far from these people over here, but they have some
different.
sort of,
right.
Yeah. So I just, you know, the journey of food, diaspora is like, it's so big.
It's one of my loves as well. Oh my goodness. And you're actually segueing to our last question, which is, what can the African diaspora do, people of African descent do? What can you do to strengthen relationships across borders? And I think you're kind of hitting on it. Like, what can we learn from one another?
So I think that, first of all, we need to just forget whatever it is that we've been told and we've been poisoned with in terms of the negativity, you know, and be open to having these dialogues and to experience these people and changing the narrative. Like, you literally don't have to listen to what 25 people have told you about this particular group of people in this country. You could go there and experience it yourself and come out with something completely different.
Absolutely.
So just be open.
I was having a dream. I mean, I don't want to segue to the very end, but since we're talking about it, I might as well bring it up. It would be so amazing to me to see not a battle of the chefs, but similar to what you're talking about, like several diaspora chefs comparing ingredients, ways of preparing food, final dishes, and having like this amazing taste test of all the different ways that we have basically kept ourselves strong and able to do all the work that we do throughout the generations. It would be like,
we call it a tasteful talk. Like,
is that a thing? Does that
will be. We just created it right now.
Writing this down. Tasteful.
Yes, a tasteful talk. Like, it's literally because, like, you know, you bring something that you love to the table. It's always to the table, and have a conversation about it.
I love
because
it.
there's way more similarities than there are differences,
Absolutely.
especially as women of color.
Yes, absolutely. So we're going to wind down, and looks like you've already started the wind down process, got the drinks ready. People are coming over for the liberation libation.
Okay. Get liberated.
Yes. And people are also asking for food. So you might have some new visitors to your
please
to your
encourage
site.
people to come and follow and DM me and ask me questions and talk food with me. I could do it forever. I really could. And so, I welcome you. I'm at Palettes and Petals on Instagram and Palettes and Petals on Facebook. And then the website is palletsandpetals.com.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Chef Halili, for sharing your passion with us today.
Thank
you. Don't know how this warms my heart. I hope you come back again. And when you come back,
anytime.
I want to sit you in a room with another chef. I want y'all to have some conversations. I think it would be amazing to kind of do more of that bridging across the diaspora. So I'll be looking for you.
I'm honored. Anytime. You have my number. You know where I'm at.
I do. I'm so excited. So everyone, thank you so much for joining us. It is 4:59 Eastern Daylight Savings Time, and we're wrapping it up, not because we didn't have a lot to talk about, but because this is Juneteenth, and we got other things to do. People have liberation libations. People have family to spend time with, but this is just the beginning, sisters and brothers, sisters and friends. Next week, we will be speaking with Luana Ozemela, who's founder of Dima Consulting in Qatar. She'll talk to us about international development, trade, and the challenges and unique opportunities for Black women in international business. And
Wonderful.
She's a powerhouse, just like every other woman we've had on this June. And I'm just excited to keep sharing stories and experiences and good practices between sisters. This is the collaboration that Black Women Disrupt would love to see happen in the world. Thank you so much, Chef
You're very
Halili.
welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. Love you guys.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you.
Be safe this weekend, everyone. Bye-bye.